No, that's the quick answer. Somehow you have to manipulate everything from the scenery, of course, down to the smallest prop, down to what they're eating, what they're driving. And you also do have some input into the palette of the costumes. And you know, essentially you can say if something's not looking right in the overall world that you're trying to create. So, although you don't tend to, but you need to pull in the aesthetic of both costume and makeup too. I have actually stood in front of things when they haven't given me time to do things right, and I am really fussy about fruits also, because you get some markets and people just start dressing in things that wouldn't have grown then. Or my big problem is when we do markets in period films and they're all perfect apples like you get now from the supermarkets. This is really annoying. My research process is actually quite detailed. So, of course, you get the script first, but I would then start with museums, with archive photographs, footage, anything visual I can get at all. I particularly look at fine art because I think it also gives a tone of what was happening at the time in colour and in the way things were approached visually. So I'll start with that, but then it will get really detailed. I'll go and find out what the spoons look like, what cars, what scenery, wallpapers, and it's amazing how much you can get. I mean, of course the internet is an amazing resource, but after that, the museums and places all over Europe, and I assume America, I haven't worked there that much, are phenomenal. You can just go to some. I went to one in Germany recently, and you just open great big drawers and there's tons and tons of fragments of original wallpaper. So it's all out there. You just have to be a bit of a detective. It's always a question of the budget, but it's an interesting equation, because even if you're making a very small film with a small budget, you don't have enough, of course, but even when you're making a very big film with a big budget, as I've done recently, you again don't have enough. It's amazing, the equation of the aspiration. So whatever figure you have, the aspiration of the film is usually about twice what's actually in the budget. So it's always a struggle. But I find personally that if resources are limited to a way, it makes you very inventive. I can, because my job is to create a world that's photographed by cinematographers and shown, a world that's shown to an audience that they believe in. So I think I must say I approach them all in the same way. You have to believe in the world that you're projecting, and be it a gritty urban film about nihilism, to even down to The King's Speech, where you're doing bits of Buckingham Palace, you still have to believe that people live there, those characters are real, and that it's all completely, you take the audience with you, otherwise I don't think I'm doing my job very well. Well, it's really interesting, because I was trying to talk to a lot of people about that at the festival last night, because usually, if you're allied to a certain director, which I tend to be, I tend to go from job to job with the same directors for a period of time, and so you're usually there much before the cinematographer, even if they know the cinematographer from another project. I'm always there first. So the director and you have already come up with a kind of visual language, and you understand how you're going to approach the project. That you then have to communicate to the DOP or the cinematographer when they arrive slightly later. And that, of course they want to have an input. And so there's always this weird kind of spider dance trying to work out whose idea is good for what and whose idea is better. And, it is a collaboration, and sometimes it can be, it can clash slightly, but ultimately I think as the person in charge of creating the world, I tend to be very collaborative, so I have to say most of them have remained my friend. The Danish Girl was a difficult project in terms of its subject matter that had to be done very sensitively, really we took it from the novel. And that's where I went to. So I followed their story and researched very carefully the characters. For example, I went to Dresden itself and got to the hospital archives, found out all about the doctor, found out the operation. So, you know, a lot of research again was done. And then also spoke to people of the transgender community and just so how to approach it. And that was important, but essentially, whatever's happening to those characters, you still have to build a believable world that they live in. And ultimately, they were artists living in a certain period. And so that was the key and the way I got in. The collaboration with Danny is always great. So we talk all the time and we laugh all the time. And we do push it through because this particular project was done really quickly. We suddenly were out the gates and we had to get going and to fit it in with certain people's actors' schedules. So we had to get it together really fast. And there were challenges in the fact that we had to build the set and shoot the interiors before we actually went to Copenhagen and shot the exteriors, which of course you would always usually do the other way around. But I think I was very determined to make sure that the colours and the hue of that build were very Copenhagen in a way and reflected that kind of light that you get in Copenhagen. So I went there a lot and kind of tried to really suck it up. Tried to eat it with my eyes and then regurgitate it in this studio. And I think the layers of the blues and the greys worked in sense that they went with the sky of the exterior finally. So it was an interesting there were a lot of dilemmas, but ultimately we had fun, and that's always I think that shows. Well, I've worked with Paul McGuigan a couple of times as well. And what was brilliant for me, and this film is really close to my heart because my mother is a biologist and I was always really fascinated by science. So that again was the way I got in. I went to everybody, I spoke to everybody about how they would make electricity, how they would get the veins in dead bodies to kind of open up, how you would get a heart going in the Victorian times. So really researched it. I'm pretty sure I could bring someone back to life now. It means an incredible amount because I think ultimately the cinematographers are the people who bring my world to life. However brilliant you are at making a physical world, it is a physical world, but it then needs transporting and elevating by the cinematographer. It comes to life with the light, not only the light, but also the way you see it, the way you could swoop in over it, you could come around corners, you can show things immediately rather than coming in a pedestrian way. So of course that has to be with the narrative, but it is amazing the visions and the kind of scope that cinematographer can bring to these worlds that an audience would never usually see and invent things that they would never see.